What's up, Royal Spartan Tribe? This is Royal Spartan 125, back for yet another great reaction. This is Absolute Mad Lads Rasputin. Okay, this is a requested video, and it's been sitting in there for a little while now. I'm looking forward to this one actually, because this is sort of something that I've been thinking about before, the whole like Tsar thing and what happened before the revolution, and I'm talking about the Russian Revolution thing and all. So this is going to be a good one, I'm sure of it. Like I said, this is a requested video, and if you'd like me to react to any other video, just leave it in the comment section down below, and I'll get to it as soon as I can. I'll be leaving links in the description down below for this video and its channel, so be sure to check out my links while you're there as well, yeah? Okay. Let's jump in.
Some people have a certain power that no one can really explain or define. They just seem to have this ability to get people to trust them and go along with everything they say. It's something that goes way beyond just charisma or charm. It's like they have a superpower that lets them manipulate everyone around them. And today's mad lad had that power. He could also preach the Bible like a preacher, full of ecstasy and fire. But he also was the kind of teacher that women would desire. Rasputin.
Go. Oh, love it. Love it. Okay.
But before we get into the mad lad, it is in fact your boy Rich Shadow Legends. The confirmed births. He was the only child. We don't know the refills and will work. Was born to refills, and even an ancient shard and the champion Bulwark. All of these rewards are only available to new players and only for the next 30 days, and you can find these rewards here in your inbox. Rasputin was born around the 20th of January 1869 in a village located within the Tyumen province in Russia. We don't know the full details of Rasputin's early life, but we can imagine that it must have been pretty tough, as he basically lived in the western parts of Siberia, which is very well known for its extreme poverty and harsh winters. In Rasputin's own case, out of 8 confirmed births, he was the only child his parents had that managed to survive to adulthood.
What?
He would remain almost completely illiterate right up until he began to pursue his religious interests. Growing up, however, it was clear that Rasputin was destined for greater things than the simple peasant life. According to some accounts, even when he was just a young child, Rasputin apparently could talk to angels in his dreams. He could also tell the future, and he could apparently also heal horses with a single touch. However, far from being considered the second coming of Christ, Rasputin started getting accused of being a demon. As he entered his teenage years, he began to misbehave very badly, engaging in petty theft, getting into fights, and living up to the Russian stereotype of being a rowdy drunk. The local peasants got so fed up with this that they didn't even call him by his real name anymore, so instead they referred to him as the licentious one. So in response, Rasputin just accepted that and actually adopted that into his real legal name. His real name was Grigory Yefimovich Novik, but he changed his last name to Rasputin, which was apparently supposed to be a play on the Russian word for immoral or deviant. But the real meaning of his name always changed depending on who you asked. Now, you would think that this sort of name change would prove to be a terrible PR move for anyone hoping to start their career as a religious figure. You know, it'd be a lot like having someone called Father McKiddy Fiddler taking mass, but it turned out that this name change would actually work in Rasputin's favour. But we can get into that in a little bit. Rasputin.
Oh my god, that one made me choke. Oh. I just had to stop it. I'll put it back. Don't worry.
Depending on who you asked. Now, you would think that this sort of name change would prove to be a terrible PR move for anyone hoping to start their career as a religious figure. You know, it'd be a lot like having someone called Father McKiddy Fiddler taking mass, but it turned out that this name change would actually work in Rasputin's favour. But we can get into that in a little bit. Rasputin eventually married a woman from a nearby village at the age of 18 and would eventually have 4 children with her. However, this didn't quite mellow him out as he continued to get violently drunk. He had taken part in numerous horse thefts and he also cheated on his wife very often. In 1892, though, he suddenly left home to seek out the monks of St. Nicholas Monastery in the nearby province. His real reason for doing this is still unknown, though most people believe that he was either facing a midlife crisis or he did it to escape the heat of the law from a previous horse theft. He was also rumoured to have frequently met with an unknown holy man of some kind who would have sparked Rasputin's interest in pursuing a more spiritual lifestyle. In any case, when Rasputin reached the monastery, he began to properly study the tenets of Orthodox Christianity, and he finally learned to read and write to a proficient standard. More importantly, it was here that Rasputin met a holy man called Makiri, who was formerly a spiritual advisor to the Tsar.
Alright, you look at that guy. Yeah? Look at him. Doesn't he just look like would you trust that guy? With a face like that? I don't know what it is. The guy just looks shifty as hell. Doesn't he look shifty? He looks shifty to me. I don't know what's going on there, but why would you trust that guy? Why would anyone trust that guy? I don't get it. I just don't.
It was here that Rasputin met a holy man called Makiri, who was formerly a spiritual advisor to the Tsar himself, and he offered to take Rasputin under his wing. As well as taking part in study and worship, Rasputin would embark on long pilgrimages to prominent holy sites within Orthodox culture, and he also preached in nearby villages and towns in rural Russia. However, this wasn't just a simple hike around the country. Monks embarking on such pilgrimages would refuse to bathe and groom, and they would wear shackles to increase the pain they felt during their long journey. This was believed to purge sin from the soul, and it would represent the stage of holiness that one had reached. This is why Rasputin...
Okay, I don't know if you guys know this already or not, but I'm not a religious person. I was brought up in religion and all that, but I just sort of went a different way. But yeah, no, that's freaky, man. That's so freaky to me. I can't even tell you. Oh wow. Okay.
Shackles to increase the pain they felt during their long journey. This was believed to purge sin from the soul, and it would represent the stage of holiness that one had reached. This is why Rasputin would always appear very rugged in any pictures he appeared in, and he would continue to bathe infrequently, even at the height of his power. His pilgrimages were said to have taken him through the Balkans.
Let me get this straight. This guy was like an advisor to, I don't know what, Tsarina? Is it the Tsarina, which is like the Russian queen? And he didn't bathe that often? Ew. How could they put up with that? Seriously. That's gross. You wouldn't think royalty would be happy with it? Oh, wow. Yeah, that's... Yeah.
Always appear very rugged in any pictures he appeared in, and he would
Yep.
continue to bathe
That's why I say he
infrequently,
looks shifty.
even
Yeah?
at the height of his power.
That's why.
His pilgrimages were said to have
doesn't look
taken
right.
him through the Balkans and even as far as Jerusalem. It was during these journeys that Rasputin would go on to develop some of his more infamous habits. As he traversed through the Siberian forest so frequently, it was said that he would eventually bump into a heretical sect known as the Khlysty, who resided there. The Khlysty rejected the use of holy books and the religious hierarchy of the church, and they would usually meet in their own secluded spots after attending normal services. They believed that the only way to become saved was to purge the sin from their bodies, and their way of achieving this was to take part in rituals which included getting high on self-asphyxiation, speaking in tongues, and singing and dancing so rapidly that they would knock themselves out. After waking back up, they would then take part in a massive orgy, which was said to release their pent-up desires with the act of intercourse.
Now, were these all men in this religious sect, or were there women as well? I don't know. If it's men and women, I might be a little more open to that sort of religion. I'm just saying. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't be. Not even a little bit.
Massive orgy, which was said to release their pent-up desires with the act of intercourse releasing sin from the body.
Sounds good to me.
Intercourse also releases a lot of other things from the body, but let's at least try and get this video monetized. Now, none of that sounds very holy.
No.
Not
really.
at all. Not even a little bit. Flailing around in the forest like a madman and then taking part in an orgy does not sound very Bible of you. But the excuse that these guys made to have a good time was that if a person had undertaken a massive amount of sin, they would experience a massive spiritual climax from repenting to God afterwards. So basically, the bigger the sin, the holier you became after repenting. Oh yeah, right there. I'm about to repent. This could be a possible explanation as to why Rasputin kept his new last name, as it would demonstrate how holy he had become compared to what he was like before he turned to religion. Okay. Although it's never been confirmed whether Rasputin ever actually belonged to the Khlysty, it's typically agreed that he had adopted many of their beliefs and practices. This could also explain why he never adopted any formal religious title within the Orthodox Church. Rasputin would eventually return home after 3 years of study, with friends and family commenting on how much he had changed from the experience. He had also amassed a small group of followers around this time, mainly coming from nearby towns and villages. They would even use Rasputin's basement to take part in the holy orgies that Rasputin obviously enjoyed a lot. Despite Rasputin's wife and kids often being in the house just upstairs while the holy orgies were going on. Rasputin would even go as far as to give his female followers nicknames such as Hot Stuff, Sexy Girl, and Boss Lady.
What?
Despite all of this going on, his wife would be absolutely dedicated.
Are you kidding me? What? What is wrong with this guy? Seriously. What? This guy was religious? Wow. I never heard of this type of Christianity before. This is completely new to me. Whoa.
Nicknames such as Hot Stuff, Sexy Girl, and Boss Lady. Despite all of this going on, his wife would be absolutely dedicated to him until her death. In fact, when she was referring to Rasputin's manhood, she was reported to have said that there was enough for all. Yes, another one of the things most well known about Rasputin is... How do I say this without getting demonetized? He also had a Pringles can. Now, these activities weren't received so well by everyone else in the area. A local priest in Rasputin's village had actually caught wind of what he was doing in his basement with the other villagers, and that priest was in the process of launching an inquiry into Rasputin, led by a bishop for the local area. Conveniently enough, this was when Rasputin started receiving visions from the Virgin Mary herself. She apparently told Rasputin that the Tsar and his family needed his help, and that he should make his way over to the Russian capital of St. Petersburg as soon as possible. Now, to most people, this would have just been an excellent excuse to hightail it and never be heard from again.
Yes.
But Rasputin actually wanted to fulfill this mission. Up until this point, Rasputin had managed to use his connections with his old mentor to demonstrate his healing abilities to lower nobles. This slowly built up his reputation within the St. Petersburg aristocracy. Upon hearing of Rasputin's visions, Macquarie had written a letter to the head of the St. Petersburg Religious Academy, requesting that Rasputin be welcomed there as a guest. This was accepted, and Rasputin would eventually make his way to St. Petersburg in 1904. But why would any nobleman in one of the biggest empires in the world ever want to meet with some unwashed monk from the middle of nowhere?
Yeah.
Well, at this time in history, the occult and mysticism were actually really trendy things among the Russian elite. And they generally held the view that the simple peasant lifestyle actually brought people closer to God. There was also a lot of sexual scandals going on at the time, with many of the women from high society frequently sleeping around with other men. All of this was basically one giant launch pad for Rasputin to build his reputation and get closer to the Tsar. And this was clearly working, as many female aristocrats found themselves to be drawn towards Rasputin's physique.
There he is again, right? Look at those eyes. Look at those eyes. You tell me that doesn't freak you out. But just that look is so intense, right? Such an intense look. That's freaking me out. Seriously. That's messed up. And look at all the women. Look at all the women. And look at him. I don't get it. What do they see? What is he, like the nicest looking guy in the whole of St. Petersburg or something? What? I mean, it doesn't say much for the other guys when you think about it, right? I mean, if that's what they think is good looking, what does it say about the other man? Oh god.
As many female aristocrats found themselves to be drawn towards Rasputin's physique and hypnotic stare and
Yeah.
probably something
Definitely the
else.
stare, though.
And they more than likely found themselves having very many private prayer sessions with him. After repeated visits to
We
the
all know what that
city,
means.
Rasputin had built many powerful connections by using his natural charm and being able to miraculously cure many nobles through prayer and hypnotism. That and also the fact that their wives could keep a secret. He would eventually meet two members of the royal family called the Black Sisters. The Black Sisters were a pair of Montenegrin princesses who had managed to manipulate their
Hmm.
way into marrying prominent members of the Romanov dynasty, making them largely unpopular within the city. They were
Oh.
also insulted regularly for their appearance, being called the Crow Sisters. This was because their noses were apparently so large that it made them look like they had beaks. It is also worth bearing in mind that Russia was really anti Semitic at this time, so
Oh.
that insult might have a lot of extra implications to it.
Yes.
I'm not making any jokes. I didn't say anything. I am just reporting on historical facts, right? I did not make any jokes because I don't want to go to prison again. Their status
What?
as outcasts and the fact that they were also very heavily.
Wait, you went to prison for making a joke? Does anyone know anything about this? I think I heard something about it. I think I did. But I'll have to look it up. Or maybe you guys can let me know. You're pretty good with this sort of stuff. But, wow. I mean, I knew things were bad in the UK when it came to free speech and all that, but I don't think it was that bad. You can actually get arrested now for saying some for saying some naughty things and making people feel bad, for hurting people's feelings. You can get arrested now. Yeah, that actually makes sense. This place is getting worse. It really is.
Right? I did not make any jokes because I don't want to go to prison again. Their status as outcasts and the fact that they were also very heavily into mysticism themselves made them natural allies with Rasputin, who they would begin to visit on a regular basis. By 1905, the Black Sisters had managed to convince the Tsar and the Empress to meet with Rasputin, being thoroughly convinced of his ability to heal through prayer. This was because, by sheer coincidence, the Empress's spiritual advisor had very recently died, and he told them of a vision he had where he foresaw the coming of another holy man who would immediately take his place. So basically,
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be too difficult to figure that one out, right? I mean, for the very spiritual people, so if the spiritual advisor dies, then obviously another one's going to come along, right? So it wasn't so much of a prophecy as just common sense, I suppose. I mean, I mean, duh. Obviously, another one's going to come along.
this was because, by sheer coincidence, the Empress's spiritual advisor had
Yeah.
very recently died, and he told them of a vision he had where he foresaw the coming of another holy man who would immediately take his place. So basically, Rasputin was not only a miracle worker in his own right, but in the Empress's eyes, he was sent to her by God himself. This was just absolute
No.
luck. Everything fell
Yeah.
perfectly in place for Rasputin to get his foot in the door. Rasputin would finally obtain an audience with the Tsar on the 1st of November 1905. But before we go on, it's important to know why the Tsar and the Empress were so eager to meet with Rasputin. Tsar Nicholas II was coronated in 1894, and since then he was at constant odds with Russia's feudal parliament called the Duma.
That's a really, really good picture of him. Wow. Like a really, really good picture of him. Because usually, like, you take what, like early 1900s? They wouldn't have colored pictures back then. So they must have, like, used modern day stuff to put color in it and stuff. Make it better. Huh. Wow. Well, they did a great job. Either that or it's someone who looks like him and made to look like him. Deepfake, maybe?
And was coronated in 1894, and since then he was at constant odds with Russia's feudal parliament called the Duma. This is because he wanted to keep as much power as possible unless he was absolutely forced to give some up by the people. He married a German princess called Alexandra, who was apparently described by the last Tsar and even Queen Victoria as being too unstable to succeed as empress. And much like the Black Sisters, she was also heavily obsessed with the occult, but more specifically, faith healing. This was because her family line had suffered from an inherited disease called haemophilia, where blood clots don't form properly in the body. This meant that if you even get so much as a light scrape, you could lose a lot of blood because no scab would form and you would just keep bleeding. However, this disease seemed to affect only the men of the family. So when their first male heir, Alexei, was born, there was a lot more stress on the family to keep him healthy and keep him away from even the slightest of dangers. So in reality, there was a major dividing line between the royal family and the rest of the aristocracy. This meant that Rasputin would be accepted more readily by the royal family, especially with the Empress's desperation to find anyone that could help her son recover. Their attachment would especially grow in 1908 when Alexei was suffering from an extremely bad bleeding episode. The royals immediately summoned Rasputin, who, upon arriving, threw the doctors out of the room and requested to be alone with the boy. After a few hours of praying and hypnotic therapy, Alexei's bleeding completely slowed down to a halt and prevented what could have been a death to an heir of the royal family. At this point, you'll probably all be trying to figure out what the trick was, but no. According to most historical sources, what Rasputin did actually healed the prince, where modern medicine at the time couldn't. So did Rasputin actually have magic healing powers? Well, a lot of medical experts have looked at the details of this case, and they advise that the best way to treat a case of extreme bleeding in a haemophiliac is to try and calm them down and reduce movement to stop rapid blood flow. So basically, Rasputin was probably able to calm Alexei down and stop him thrashing about in pain, which would have kept him from dying.
Yes.
But this still doesn't explain why he was able to succeed where the doctors failed. Well, it turns out that Rasputin's own hubris actually played a big part in saving Alexei's life. At the time, the first response that the doctors had was to prescribe Alexei with aspirin, which actually thinned out his blood and prolonged the bleeding. So by kicking out the doctors, Rasputin had, by accident, saved Alexei by preventing the doctors from stressing him out or issuing him with aspirin, which would have actually killed him. Regardless of how he did it, the royal family were completely amazed and eternally grateful to Rasputin for saving their son. Though Rasputin couldn't actually cure Alexei's haemophilia, Rasputin actually improved their son's quality of life, and he also prevented him from dying several more times. To show his gratitude, the Tsar granted Rasputin unrestricted access to the royal household, and Rasputin would even tend to other members of the royal family such as the Empress herself. Rasputin would visit weekly to treat her for headaches and anxiety attacks caused by stress. Rasputin also became one of the Tsar's own personal advisors, and he even prescribed the Tsar cocaine to treat his own various problems. At one point, the Tsar got so hooked to the drugs that Rasputin was giving him that the Tsar would invite Rasputin over just to get a fix. So Rasputin basically became the Russian king's drug dealer. The relationship between the royals and Rasputin eventually got so close that Rasputin started calling the Tsar and his wife.
Like, look at them, right? Just like a very picturesque sort of family with lovely daughters, little son down there, and the parents, and then you got this specter in the background. I mean, it actually looks like his body is made of mist. There, yeah. And look at his hand. Look at his creepy hand near her. Look at that, he's gonna like be brushing her hair with his hand. Ugh. What the Tell me that doesn't look like something out of a nightmare. Right there. Yeah? Nightmare situation. Family with 3 pretty girls. Creeper. Yeah? Right there. Oh, what is... Ugh. No, I don't get it. I don't see what they see in him. I really don't. Obviously the guy is very lucky, you know?
Basically became the Russian king's drug dealer. The relationship between the royals and Rasputin eventually got so close that Rasputin started calling the Tsar and his wife Papa and Mama. However, there has been a general trend in Rasputin's life that you no doubt have noticed, and it's that whenever Rasputin gets himself into a good position, he would almost immediately ruin it by giving in to his urges or by alienating a big part of his original support base. From 1911, Rasputin was slowly turning the aristocracy and the general public against him by getting involved in numerous scandals. As well as the usual stuff of drinking too much, fighting, and straight up screaming in the street, the biggest scandals that Rasputin got involved in are the ones that he is most well known for. His sex scandals.
Yep, there it is.
Rasputin managed to use his reputation as a faith healer to cure the wives of aristocrats and nuns through the use of intercourse. His preferred methods for doing this were to hold massive orgies in bathhouses and monasteries, which would annoy the owners and infuriate the other priests.
Let me get this straight. This guy was a faith healer who healed women who healed women through having sex with them. Are you serious? People actually fall for that? I think I picked the wrong profession in life.
Were to hold massive orgies in bathhouses and monasteries, which would annoy the owners and infuriate the other priests. Another interesting fact is that even though Rasputin was in a literal bathhouse, he would still refuse to actually bathe. So most of the time, he would come out smelling far worse than before he went in.
Oh, God.
Rasputin would also claim in multiple drunken rants that he had sex with the Empress herself. And this has since become a very popular talking point and rumour when it comes to Rasputin. And it was even in the very popular Boney M song, Ra Ra Rasputin, lover of the Russian queen. But there's actually not been any evidence to back that up. Unlike most of the aristocracy, the royal family were known for being ultra conservative when it came to sex, especially the Empress, who has been described as being extremely prudish. In fact, when the
Oh,
Empress was actually asked by one of her close friends as to whether or not she found Rasputin even remotely attractive, she grimaced and responded by simply saying, "Yuck." There are a lot of reasons as to why this rumour has been accepted pretty much as fact in popular culture. Part of it is due to Rasputin's own encouragement, but also in the lead up to the Russian Revolution of 1917, the Bolsheviks actually exploited this rumour for political gain because they were trying to convince the Russian
yeah.
people that the royals were hopelessly corrupt and degenerate. And also, if you are very well known for being an absolute horn dog with all of the other women, then people are going to assume the same thing about the woman that you hang out with most.
Yeah,
However,
of
this wasn't
course.
the only member of the royal family that Rasputin had been accused of messing around with. Rasputin had apparently been kicked out of the royal nursery multiple times by the nanny, who had accused Rasputin of acting inappropriately towards the Tsar's own daughters. However, it ended up
Oh,
being the nanny herself that was fired from her job, with the daughters actually calling for it because they said that she was mean. Rasputin was
so what do you think happened? Do you think the daughters were actually sleeping with him? The nanny was stopped it, and then the daughters got angry because they couldn't get to the boy toy anymore, and got the nanny fired for it. I would like to think not, but I don't know. I have absolutely no idea on that one.
However, it ended up being the nanny herself that was fired from her job,
Hmm?
with the daughters actually calling for it because they said that she was mean. Rasputin was also accused of forcing himself upon a female maid in the royal palace, but she also shared the same fate as the nanny, and she was fired for bringing down Rasputin's image and
Oh
reputation.
wow. Okay, guys, that's the end of part one. This one's 50 minutes long, so I'm gonna have to cut it in half. And yeah, so far it's been kind of crazy. Of course, I expected it to be kind of crazy. I mean, it had to be, yeah. Wow. Okay. Until next time. Oh, until part two. I am out of here.